That's right. It's time for another edition of the Audible Week 14 Instant Reactions for Fantasy Football. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom talking New Orleans Saints football over the New York Giants, barely 14-11 is the final score. Saints are 5-8. The Giants are 2-11. Derek Carr with one touchdown, one INT, 219 yards passing in this one. Marquez Valdes-Scantling with most of the receiving yards, 51, but right behind him, Juwan Johnson with 50. Foster Moreau with 40. How's this team going to look like without Taysom Hill? Dallin Holker got on the field, everybody. So what's that? 3 tight ends and catching passes, right?
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara doing his thing. It was Kendre Miller, not in the doghouse.
Yep.
Not in the doghouse with Rizzy, with the Rizzler, with the Kendre Miller getting a rushing touchdown, cutting into Alvin Kamara's workload. Only 17 carries for Kamara, 10 for Kendre Miller. So a couple of interesting things to watch entering this game. It's not a great game, Sigmund, as we can tell by the box score.
Yeah.
But entering this game is like, okay, what's Kendre Miller do to cut into Kamara's workload? That happened. And then what do they look like without Taysom Hill? We got our answer.
Yeah, barely good enough to beat the Giants. That's how they look. And throw Kendre Miller a bone. There's some talk. Darren Rizzi's from Jersey, and they're telling a story that he was the kid that other kids came to if they were getting bullied, and the bullies wouldn't mess with them anymore. So isn't that a great role to play? The Saints' role right now is only 2 games out of first place, and they finished with Tampa Bay. So it's not over, although Derek Carr went out with a hand injury and maybe a concussion. Jake Haener came in. So we're going to see next week, New Orleans plays Washington. You did see Juwan Johnson getting a touchdown. If you're looking for your what the heck tight end, buy coverage tight end, maybe a tight end we'll keep in because, as you said, there's not a lot else going on. Maybe Chris Olave could come back. The Giants defense was lethargic at first, but eventually came around. So this isn't the no effort Giants, hence a close game. Darren Rizzi called a fake punt at a bad time, but that's what you get when the special teams coach is the interim coach. So we'll see if the Saints can continue to be plucky against a Washington team that actually is a playoff team, while the Saints are technically still alive for the playoffs.
Yeah, technically. And the Giants are still alive for the number 1 overall pick because they want Shedeur Sanders. I have a feeling, though, they're going to have to draft Shiloh as well. That's part of a package deal. Yeah, 7th round pick, whatever. So let's get to the Giants side of things. And Drew Lock with no touchdown, 1 INT, 227 yards passing. Also leading them on the ground with 59 yards rushing. All right, Tyrone Tracy with 45 yards and a rushing touchdown. Malik Neighbors, there's an absolute edict. Get him the ball. 10 targets, 5 catches, 79 yards. 11 targets for Wan'Dale Robinson, only 4 for 38. 10 targets for Tracy as a receiver out of the backfield, 5 for 38. Daniel Bellinger's in there, 5 for 45. Of course, no Theo Johnson Bellinger back in action. So, yeah, the Giants lose, but they win, Sigmund, because they can still push for that number 1 pick.
Right. Vegas is ahead of them. Spoiler alert. But this is what you want, competitive, playing with pride, but still in the end, the loss. Locke started out 0 for 8 in this one. You did see Malik Neighbors come on in the second half. So a big decision about Malik Neighbors, a lot of talk that he was going to be limited, that he was pushing to play, but maybe not 100%. Did enough in this one. And Tyrone Tracy did enough in this one with the late touchdown to tighten things up, getting a lot of receptions here as Drew Lock, a limited passer. You had a chance at the end to tie this game and send it to overtime. Brian Bresee with a block, a great game on the Saints defensive line, and ends up winning the game. So sitting at the number 2 pick with Baltimore coming, they will be at least sitting at the number 2 pick after next week.
Yes, let's get to it because it is Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers. Much unlike the last contest, which was resonating because Hellbloom, what was it, like 3 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
So 27-14, the final score. The Steelers rolling, they're 10-3. The Browns are 3-10. Jameis staying away from the pick sixes, maybe. Had 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 212 yards. Nick Chubb with 48 yards on the ground. Winston had 28 yards on the ground, by the way. Jerry Jeudy, not a million yards like he had against Denver, but 5 for 64 and a touchdown. David Njoku, 7 for 42 and a touchdown. Elijah Moore, 3 for 34. Why am I reading the rest of these players? But you see how Cleveland's just kind of wind out of their sails, get this thing to the end, and then a lot of questions, including, which makes me sad, Bloom, because the word was, okay, Deshaun Watson, they're going to bring someone in to compete with him. Why not it be Jameis Winston? Well, why
Right.
not? You're seeing why not.
Right. And then, there's a larger story here. Matt Harmon brought this up during the week that you look at quarterbacks, there's 2, maybe 3 draft quarterbacks for first round, maybe, and there's a lot more than 3 teams that need a quarterback. Cleveland, one of them. The Steelers defense, and not exactly cruising to a top 3 pick, Steelers defense ruling the day here. You did see Jameis Winston in garbage time get a touchdown to David Njoku. You saw Judy get the touchdown early. Kadarius Toney got in to muff a punt to put a nail in the coffin. That's what Kadarius Toney is around in the 2024 NFL for. Get out there and field a punt in the last 5 minutes. Oh, you muffed the punt. Game over. Steelers win. Jameis Winston coming through again with some garbage time. Not much there as Chubb and Ford split the work for the backfield for the Browns. And yeah, the Browns, you got Myles Garrett. And I don't even know if they're still going to have Nick Chubb, honestly, next year. So, that's what you have to build around. And go to Kansas City next week.
Yeah. Hey, good luck with that. Pittsburgh Steelers side, Russell Wilson. What happened before the half? When they're like, let's run a play. Nah, let's not run a play. By the way, they pull away because it's 13-7 at halftime. You're like, okay, those 10 unanswered points in the second quarter help propel them, and 14 unanswered points in the third quarter. Excuse me. So how'd they do it? A little bit of Russell Wilson, 2 touchdowns on the day. One to Pat Freiermuth, 3 for 48 and a touchdown. One to Van Jefferson, 1 for 10 and a touchdown. The George Pickens news had an alert that we sent you out, footballguys.com. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. Had to send everyone that alert. Danger, danger, danger. Will Robinson, he's not playing. So Mike Williams got 3 for 36. Scotty Miller got 3 for 38. You would not be relying on either of those guys. Najee Harris, 16 for 53 and a touch. Jalen Warren can still do more, Bloom. 9 for 47. Yeah. 9? Okay. And then 2 for 25 as a receiver. Okay, there you go. There's 11 touches. But in this backfield with 35 carries, 6 carries for Russ, because that's kind of what he does. Why can't you take 3 of those carries and give them to Jalen? I'm complaining the Steelers won, and they got revenge against the Browns for beating them 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple of things, Cecil. I was at the farmer's market this morning, and I saw this older man who had a Mean Joe Green jersey on. Wow, you don't see those out in the wild very often.
Nice.
He told me he was actually worked a concession stand at the Minnesota Pittsburgh Super Bowl. I think it was Super Bowl 9. It was here in New Orleans at Tulane. And he said that after the game, he was able to get Donnie Shell's chin strap and Mel Blount's wristband from that game. And he's forever been a Steelers fan since. We're still Steelers fans. If the Steelers had just beat the Browns 2 weeks ago and the Cowboys, they would be tied with the Chiefs for the number 1 seed for the bye. And they still play the Chiefs. So, the glass half full, glass half empty. And it was a glass half full, glass half empty kind of day for this offense because without George Pickens, and again, even if it looks like someone's turning to playing, that's what we're here for you, football guys. We're going to get those updates out to you because it was important. And maybe if you put in Calvin Austin, that didn't work out. He did draw a pass interference on one of the scoring drives, but it was just a conservative offense. You saw Russell Wilson execute a play designed by Arthur Smith really well for the Van Jefferson touchdown. You also saw Pat Freiermuth getting the touchdown here if you went back to him 2 good weeks in a row. And Najee Harris running tough. Not a lot of room to run, but running tough. He ended up being a good play. Like you said, Warren maybe coming on. Cordell Patterson had a fumble in this game. So maybe that gets Jalen Warren's workload, snap design up. And this was a pretty easy win. They actually look like a good team beating a bad team that beat them 2 weeks ago in the snow. Pittsburgh going to face some good teams for the rest of the season, starting with Philadelphia next week.
Let's get it on. This one, disappointing, Sigmund, I think is the best way to describe Atlanta and Minnesota. Because you're like, Atlanta, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay, buddies. You could do a little more. Kirk Cousins needs to stop turning the ball over. And 42-21, the final score. Vikings 11-2, Falcons are 6-7. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. No touchdowns, 2 INTs, 344 yards. Okay, that's awesome, but you didn't throw any touchdowns. Darnell Mooney gets most of it, 6 for 142. You had Ray McLeod with 11 targets, 8 for 98 on the day. Drake London, 10 targets, 5 for 70 on the day. Kyle Pitts, 6 targets, 1 catch, 14 yards. There you go. Bijan Robinson, 22 carries, 92 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Tyler Algier, 9 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown. And away we go. The fourth quarter, though, because you think, oh, 42-21, there's some garbage time. Well, yeah, but a 21-point fourth quarter. We'll get to the Vikings a little bit. But the Falcons tried to stay in it, just couldn't get over the top, and then got blown out in the end.
Yeah, not as bad for Kirk Cousins. Obviously, piling up some downfield passes to Darnell Mooney. Of course, Drake London did enough, but it was actually Ray McLeod doing more. Kyle Pitts did nothing, which we kind of expect now. That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It isn't even a story that he only caught one pass. And when Kirk Cousins was throwing for over 300 yards, Kyle Pitts did nothing. Tyler Algier got a touchdown if you had to go with him as a what the heck flex. And then Bijan Robinson had a touchdown, and Bijan Robinson still leading the way with over 20 carries, not as big a part of the passing game. A couple of bad interceptions for Cousins in this one. And you're wondering, now Atlanta's no longer in first place. Tampa Bay has passed them. What would get Kirk Cousins benched? Losing in Las Vegas last week, we're drafting the future. Next week in Las Vegas, if they fall to 6-8, Tampa Bay is going to play the Chargers. If they open up a 2-game lead and put the Falcons at the brink, is that when you go to Michael Penix? We may find out.
Yeah, and then does Penix go to Pitts more? I bet he does.
Yeah.
I bet he does. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's get to the Minnesota side where it was very robust. 5 touchdowns for Sam Darnold, 347 yards. 3 of them to Jordan Addison, 8 for 133 and 3. Wow. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 132 and 2 receiving touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson, 4 for 45 in this one. Aaron Jones, 13 for 73 and a rushing touchdown. Held on to the ball. Couple of catches there as well. So here you go, Minnesota. Fourth quarter surge and splurge of points for your fantasy team.
Yeah, you saw Justin Jefferson and Matt Harmon. Second Matt Harmon name drop. He called this. He said Justin Jefferson's still playing really well. He's below his typical scoring level, but look for some outburst games down the stretch. This was one, and the big outburst game for Jordan Addison also drew a pass interference in this one. Short touchdowns, long touchdowns. Aaron Jones got a late touchdown to make it 42-21. Even TJ Hawkinson got a few passes, so it wasn't a total waste. Minnesota still only 1 game back at Detroit and has a game left against Detroit. So Detroit's not in the clear yet, looking for that bye. But I want to talk about Sam Darnold for a second, because a report comes out before this game from Adam Schefter. Oh, what did I just do there? Schefter. I was going to say one of your mentors. That's like Adorn Schefter. Someone needs to do Adam Schefter. Anyway, Cecil, your mentor back at the Rocky Mountain Dunes days. He puts us out here that there has been no talks about an extension. Why is that newsworthy? Do teams usually talk to players about extensions during the season whenever they're pending free agents and they just joined the team this year? Does that get changed if Darnold continues to play like this? If Darnold gets them to the NFC Championship game? So there's still a lot of stuff to be determined here. And I don't think or know if Sam Darnold had any idea that this report was out there. But if you're looking for a way to answer that report and say, well, by the time the season's over, the Vikings are going to want me to sign an extension. Yeah, or a new contract. Yeah, I think that Sam Darnold had that kind of performance in this one against an Atlanta team that is swirling down the drain. Chicago coming to Minnesota next week.
Well, and Bloom, I'll say it. I mean, I really appreciate J.J. McCarthy's game, even though I had a second-round grade on him. I've never thought that was a good fit. They wanted Drake May.
Yeah.
They wanted Drake May. Drake May is a perfect fit for Kevin O'Connell. And listen, JJ may be fantastic, but I always hear these or see these reports of like, and then they got JJ McCarthy, who's the perfect fit for Kevin O'Connell. And my mind goes, no, he's not. He doesn't have a rocket arm. He doesn't have a big arm, like at all.
Well, and I'll just add on to this. And again, there's a lot of time for this to change. Let's say Minnesota still finishes in second place in the division. Okay. But they go on the road against an Arizona or a Seattle or a Rams, and they win that game. And then in the next game, they maybe play a Detroit or they play Philadelphia, and they win that game. And now they're an NFC Championship game, and you're in a Super Bowl window. How do you reset everything next year for the JJ McCarthy plan when you were that close the year before? So I think that's the yardstick. If Darnold can get them to the NFC Championship game, if he can beat a Detroit or a Philadelphia in the playoffs, then you tear up whatever plan you had. Actually, what am I saying? They probably will play Tampa Bay, but that's the point. He can win one playoff game for sure. If he doesn't, that's a disappointment. If he doesn't even win a playoff game, now you're saying, well, yeah, it's the JJ McCarthy plan, because Darnold got us this far, but he couldn't get us any farther. But if Darnold can win 2 playoff games, then how do you go away from it?
I love that story too, Bloom, because he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it. Like how many times in our day-to-day lives do you have that sort of clarity like Darnold has? Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah,
This is
yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
This is
That's
it.
it.
Make no
No
mistake.
mistake.
Or it's like 3 games into the week 14 recap. That's where we are.
Hey, 7 games, we can stretch it out. We can be sing-songy if we want. And by the way, it's Raiders Buccaneers next. And when Deion Sanders tells Antonio Pierce in a public event, like, you need to draft the Sanders boys, I was thinking, and I like Antonio, we're Facebook friends, but I was thinking, why is he telling Antonio he's not going to be there?
That's like telling the front person at the restaurant that's like taking order, like, you're all got this is the menu. They're just seating people at the tables. They
Right,
don't actually
right.
have any say.
Antonio Pierce is not going to have a job after a while.
Yeah.
28 for 13. Tampa Bay gets the win. They're 7-6. Raiders 2-11. Aiden O'Connell, it gets pushed around in this one. 104, no touchdowns, 1 INT. Desmond Ridder comes in 101, no touchdowns, no INTs. Sincere McCormick, 15 for 78. So if you picked him up, okay, enough, buddy. Aiden O'Connell got a rushing touchdown. Would have been nice if McCormick had gotten that. Michael Mayer, 7 for 68. Jacoby Myers, 7 for 67. Brock Bowers, 3 for 49. And Sincere McCormick also had a couple of catches for 11 yards. So, yeah, this is kind of what you get when your quarterback's Aiden O'Connell or Desmond Ridder, and you're facing a Buccaneers team at home. This was going to be the result.
Yeah, they hung around. Aiden
Sure.
O'Connell, he showed this game was pretty close into the second half. He showed his limitations. He left, I believe the report was he had an air cast on his leg. We're going to see Desmond Ridder. How many quarterback changes has this team had? Not to say that Antonio Pierce should have a job next year, but O'Connell did get the sneak touchdown. Sincere McCormick had 2 goal-to-go carries inside the 5 on that drive. So you almost had McCormick get you over the top there, but McCormick was the clear lead back. And again, it's Atlanta next week. So I think McCormick ran more than well enough to earn that opportunity again next week. Jacoby Myers said, okay, Brock Bowers did not do as well. Michael Mayer, who was away from the football team, personal. It's one thing whenever a player misses a practice, parentheses personal, but when you're missing multiple games, parentheses personal, well, he's back. And he's making some waves for fantasy, which might not be great if Brock Bowers was one of the leaders of your team going into the fantasy football playoffs. Vegas has that number 1 pick right now. So whoever's in charge sees, tell Deion, get in touch with whoever it is, because they're in position to take whoever they want as of right now.
It's Tommy Brady. Because Mark Davis will just let him do whatever. Like, please, thanks. Tampa Bay side, Baker the Babymaker, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs in this one, 295 yards passing. It was Jalen McMillan, 4 for 59 and 2 of those touchdowns. Rashad White, 2 for 19 as a receiver, a receiving touchdown. Rashad also had 17 carries, 90 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Sean Tucker got a little involved with 3 for 47 in this one. Bucky Irving, 4 carries, 3 yards. All right. Still love him. Cade Otton, 3 for 70 to lead the way for the receivers. And then Mike Evans, 4 for 69. Nice. Sterling Shepard, 4 for 63 in this contest. So Buccaneers, they're rolling, and they themselves have a nice bookend there with 14 points in the first quarter, 14 points in the fourth quarter. Win it 28-13.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield getting it done early. Turnovers, 3 turnovers in the first half. The Raiders had only forced 5 turnovers all year. And the Bucs turned the ball over 3 times in the first half, still win easily. This is a potential playoff team. That's what you do, even whenever you have some self-inflicted wounds. You win, and you win with Baker Mayfield leading the way. And Rashad White, Bucky Irving leaves with a back injury. Aggravation. He was on the injury report, back and hip. So with an aggravation of a back injury next week against Chargers, toughest game they have left, by the way. Maybe we'll see Bucky Irving, maybe not. Sean Tucker, Syracuse in the house, had a nice run, like a 30-plus yard run down to the 3, but it's Rashad White. You're excited if you have Rashad White. You're excited if you have Jalen McMillan, who had 2 touchdowns. Probably didn't have him in the lineup, but now you're thinking about it, going down the stretch in the playoffs. You're like, maybe there's something there. There's something there with Evans. Cade Otton at least wasn't a liability. So tight end, if you're rubbing 2 sticks together, he could do something. Even Sterling Shepard did something. But this is a first-place team. And let's face it, Cecil, I'm watching football the last few weeks. I don't want to see the Falcons in the playoffs. I don't want to waste my time to see what that team can do in a playoff game. I want to see what Baker Mayfield can do in the playoffs again, by the way. And remember, they beat Detroit. They played Detroit tough in the playoffs last year. whatever the records are, Baker Mayfield has graduated to be the kind of quarterback that we say he gives his team a chance to win against everybody.
Yes, yeah. I want to see Baker Mayfield in the playoffs. Bloom, may I allow an addendum, though?
Please,
Is that allowed?
please. Always.
And I don't want to say that we share a brain, but after 19 years of doing the show together, because I feel bad for you if you share part of my brain. I'm like, oh, what a large step down for the Sigmund Bloom, mastermind brain. I don't want to see the Falcons in the playoff unless Michael Penix is playing.
Well, yes. Now that's an interesting story. Now I'm interested. Now I will tune in for that. Yes. So as long as we get one of those two outcomes with the NFC South, I'm happy.
All right. 4 games down, 3 games to go here in Week 14 Fantasy Football Instant Reactions. It's the Audible. It's Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund Bloom. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing good today. Carolina and Philadelphia is our next game up to discuss. 22-16. Okay, 22-16. Couldn't have move that up a little bit there, Philadelphia. Yeah. But it says that, Bryce Young, and this has been a revelation, by the way. Eagles are the winners and they're 11-2. Carolina's 3-10. But Bryce Young, man, you love to see the fight from him coming back from his benching and how he's been able to lead the way there. 19-34, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT this time. Adam Thielen, 9 for 102. Xavier Legette, only 2 for 39. David Moore, 2 for 25. Nobody started him. Tommy Tremble, who I believe we did talk about on the Waiver Wire show. Now, it was 1 catch, but it was a touchdown. So there you go. You got that. Chuba Hubbard, 26 for 92 and a rushing touchdown. Okay. Jonathan Brooks, 1 for -3. Chuba, by the way, had 4 for 15 as well. So they put up a fight. It was 8 points in the fourth quarter that get the Eagles over the top. But Carolina, hey, next year and this year, you know what they're doing, Sigmund?
Yeah.
They're figuring out who's going to be part of the future, who's trying. Yeah. They've got guys out there working their ass off.
Yeah, and Bryce Young is one of them. Not a great fantasy game for Bryce Young, but remember, he's facing maybe the hottest defense in the league, Vic Fangio's Eagles defense. And he hung tough and had the Panthers with a chance to win at the end of this game. The thing you're noticing about Bryce Young is he's playing in a comfort zone when it comes to negotiating pressure, because Bryce Young's not a pocket passer, okay? Bryce Young is at his best when he is engaging the defense in these asymmetrical terms where he's escaping out of these holes in the pocket whenever it breaks down, when he's getting out into space, he's making throws on the run, maybe jump throw here and there. But yeah, they're in good hands. They're in good hands with Canales. You see the play execution, the play designs working, and you see Bryce Young doing really well here. By the way, we'll get to see what he does against a much easier defense when Dallas comes to town. Jonathan Brooks leaves with a non-contact knee injury. No other details. Man. And it does make you wonder, if he went this long without playing Brooks this year, was there an argument to just not play him since he's part of the team in the future? But like you said, he's sorting it out. Well, Chuba Hubbard, man, that guy gives everything. Gives everything for fantasy teams. He gives everything for the Panthers, earning every yard, really just taking a ton of punishment, dishing out some punishment on his own. So much determination here. Adam Thielen making catches. Could Adam Thielen be a league winner? It looks like it. The way that he's getting targeted, the way that Bryce Young's playing, the way that Adam Thielen is playing. Tommy Tremble gets a touchdown here. Xavier Legette almost gets a game-winning touchdown. A beautiful call, beautiful execution, dives, can't quite bring it in. Or we're talking about Xavier Legette, assuming Eddie Pinheiro could have got the extra point with a game-winning touchdown in Philadelphia. So like you said, Cease, for Philadelphia, should have been more there. Shouldn't have been that close. Carolina in that nice situation that we've been talking about with New England. You're losing, you're playing competitively, you have your quarterback, you're going to have a high pick next year. So, wow, how things change. If we talked about this team a month and a half ago, we'd say, is anything in place? Now it seems like a lot is in place.
I don't want to say good loss or moral victory. It's kind of both of those, though, for this team. Yeah. What is it for Philadelphia, though? Because you're like, you win, okay, you win, but Jalen Hurts goes 108 yards passing. 2 touchdowns, no INTs. And again, it's not like there was, it's 50-16. It's 22-16, and you scored 8 points in the fourth quarter to win. So, all right, A.J. Brown, 4 for 43. Okay. Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith, 4 for 37 and a touch. Grant Calcaterra, 3 for 16 and a touch. So we had the Calcaterra and Tremble, who I do believe we both talked about on the waiver wire. Saquon Barkley's amazing. He's fantastic. 20 for 124. By the way, Jalen Hurts with a rushing touchdown. Cannot forget about that. But yeah, if you're the Eagles, you're like, thought we were going to score more.
Yeah, or this is not the same Carolina team that we saw for the first 2 months of the season. So they took Kansas City to the brink. So maybe not so bad to beat them, to edge them out. The offense was quiet early. Jalen Hurts got a rushing touchdown because Saquon Barkley was tackled at the 1, and then they let him try to get it in from the 1, and he didn't. It was Hurts getting the rushing touchdown. Big game for Hurts, but Saquon Barkley breaking LaShawn McCoy's single-season rushing record for the Eagles. So I know if he gets the single-season record with 17 games, there might be people saying, well, he broke the Eagles record with 4 games left in the season. So that's, he's having a really good season, all right? Devontae Smith, if he played him, he got a touchdown. A.J. Brown, I mean, they didn't really have to pass. This team is in their comfort zone when they're not passing downfield a ton, when they're not even passing a ton. They didn't have to in this one. Like you said, Calcaterra, if you had him as a desperation tight end. Something to think about, by the way, if you're the Eagles. Jake Elliott missed another field goal from over 50 yards. He's 0 for 5 from over 50. Not a big deal when you're playing the Panthers. Maybe in the playoffs, it could become a bigger deal. And again, big deal, the Battle of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh next week.
Let's get it on. All right. Jacksonville, Tennessee. Yeah.
No. Somebody said, this is the worst game since that game Kendall Hinton played.
That Philip Lindsay started at quarterback because reasons. Let's get to it. 10-6, the final score. Titans are 3-10. Titans lost. But if I just said Jacksonville, Tennessee, 10-6, people would be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And then you'd be like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Whichever one won.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Jacksonville won, though. They're 3-10. Tennessee lost. They're 3-10. Mac Jones, 220, no touchdowns, 2 INTs. Why does he look better coming off the bench? Brian Thomas, Lee Scott for 8 for 86. Okay, so there's an edict there because it's Mac Jones, for the love of God. Like, just tell him, target Brian Thomas as much as possible. Looks like Travis Etienne with 4 for 50. And then 4 for 20 as a rusher, 4 for 50 as a receiver. Evan Ingram, 4 for 33 in this one. There's Parker Washington, couple catches, 15 yards. You had him in as a what the heck flex? Maybe. Maybe. Tank Bigsby, he's out, he's in, he's back, he's not. 18 for 55 and a rushing touchdown today. All right. Catch for 7 yards. Okay. I probably spent too much time on this game already, Blue.
Big draft implications. Yeah. Well,
the Travis Hunter Bowl.
Right. Jacksonville, costly win. Mac Jones isn't that good, but he's good enough to beat Tennessee, a depleted Tennessee defense. Both running backs for flex plays. Brian Thomas Jr. didn't do very much for the first half, and then for some stretches of the second half, he got consecutive targets, and it ended up coming out okay. Good for Brian Thomas. Good for Brian Thomas fantasy teams that you can play him with Mac Jones, and you don't need a long touchdown for him to still be a good play. Evan Ingram did enough. Jacksonville playing their way out of the number 1 pick for now, but still a lot of football left. Play Tennessee again, actually, and they played the Jets. Another essential game to watch. Must-see TV next week.
And Jacksonville needs that pick so they can deal it because they want Travis Hunter. So they could deal number 1 to the Giants who want Shedeur. Anyway, Tennessee, I don't think if there was a group of teams, and yes, Shedeur Sanders is going to go John Elway or Eli Manning. He's going to tell you where he's going to go and where he's not. I don't think Tennessee would be on that list. If Tennessee, we want to draft Shedeur Sanders, I think Dion and everybody would say, no, just don't, because he's not going to play there. That's a guess. But Will Levis is not the answer. 168, no touchdowns, no INTs. Calvin Ridley, 7 for 59. Josh Wiley, 2 for 31. Nick Westbrook-Akine, 1 for 19. Damn it. Yeah. Damn it. I love Chiggy, 3 for 8 in this one. Tony Pollard, 21 for 102. Okay, there's something, right? Couple catches, 22 yards. So there's something. But man alive, this is a rough one to watch. Was it Mr. Scampers? Yes, Mr. Scampers legit forgot Jacksonville, Tennessee was on because it almost never showed up on Red Zone.
Right. Right. You did have the Nick Westbrook-Akine almost touchdown to win the game. So if you played Westbrook-Akine and he came up small, just know we almost got the 9th touchdown in 9 games. Tony Pollard running his heart out for this team going nowhere, and he had an early touchdown taken off the board by penalty. Cease, what does it look like when you're trying to lose on purpose? calling a play where Jeffrey Simmons is the first option in a passing progression on 4th down and goal. Yeah, we've been saving the Jeffrey Simmons fullback play. The pass to Jeffrey Simmons is the fullback play. If you call a run, maybe we talk about Jacksonville still having the number 1 pick, Tennessee moving closer, not necessarily number 1 pick, but we'll see. Will Levis got banged up in this game on the last play of the first half, comes back in. Ridley did enough that you're going to keep him in. But that Levis isn't the answer. So at least there are teams that maybe you would run it back with the quarterback to see what you have. I think we know what they have in Will Levis. And they're facing a team that actually has a really good quarterback, but is going basically the same place as them. Cincinnati next week.
All right. What about the Jets and the Dolphins? Our final game we're going to talk about here. Week 14, instant reactions. Aaron Rodgers did good things. Okay. All right. The Jets don't win, though. It's 32-26, the final score. Miami is 6-7. The Jets are 3-10. Rodgers goes for 27-39, 339, 1 touchdown, no INTs. The touchdown to Devontae Adams, 9 for 109 and a touch. Garrett Wilson had 7 for 114. Most of those guys did everything. We know Breece Hall wasn't in this one. So here comes Braylon Allen, 11 for 43. But then Isaiah Davis gets 10 for 40 and the rushing touchdown there. Braylon Allen also had 4 for 38 in this one. Davis had 3 for 27. It's full-blown RBBC without Mr. Breece Hall, even though I have a great appreciation for Braylon Allen. Guess who's appreciating Isaiah Davis on his waiver wire for the fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, the Jackrabbits. The Jets led for most of this game. Aaron Rodgers, converting on 4th down, first 300-yard game since the Nixon administration. I'm making that stat up. It is his first 300-yard game in a long time. Throwing to Devontae Adams, who's probably going to be a free agent next year. Throwing to Garrett Wilson, who is really good. Can we just get him consistent quarterback play? Again, both of the running backs, what the heck flexes next week against Jacksonville. I think you can probably keep them in those spots. I don't think we're going to see Breece Hall next week. Jets headed for a top 10 pick. Again, big draft implications. That's the only way that we can make that game at all interesting in Jacksonville next week.
All right, let's talk Miami side to wrap up the day. And the Dolphins go Tua Tagovailoa at 33 of 47, 331, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Tyreek Hill 10 for 115 and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle 9 for 99. Damn it, almost there.
Yeah.
I can paint any car for $99. Devon Achane 6 for 45. And that's as a receiver, 14 for 24 and a rushing touchdown there. Jalen Wright, a couple of carries, only 7 yards. Johnny Smith, 3 for 44 and a touchdown. That's some very good things there as well, as the Dolphins roll on to get this win. And they're scratching, Bloom. They're scratching, They're fighting, they're clawing, they're doing all that stuff, trying to hang on here towards the postseason push.
Yeah, keep the season alive. This was one of those games, again, 8th loss, you're basically out in the AFC. They don't suffer the 8th loss. Big passing numbers as Tua Tagovailoa to Tyreek Hill to Jalen Waddle. Don't think we're going to get as many Jalen Waddle questions. I think you're just going to keep Waddle in. Jonnu Smith, the best 3-game stretch in fantasy football this year for tight ends coming into this one, did not catch a pass in regulation. So you want to be happy that Jason Sanders hit that field goal to send it to overtime. If you had Jonnu Smith in, you're thinking, God, 3 for 44 and touchdown in overtime. Gotcha. Psych. It's going to be a good play anyway. Just overtime. You just needed overtime. Gets the walk-off touchdown here. Devin Achane got a little banged up in this one. Okay, when you throw a screen pass, like a tunnel screen to Devin Achane, make sure Quinnen Williams isn't there to just engulf him. But Achane get banged up here and there, get him back in the game. Not a lot of rushing efficiency here. Oster was out. Jalen Wright didn't do much. Actually, Jeff Wilson ended up getting more work than Jalen Wright. And Miami and Houston, I'm not really sure what to think of either of those teams. I'm not really sure what to think of Week 14 so far, Cease. I will say, as we may comment on the 3 games that are going on right now, fantasy football is senseless. Fantasy football is brutal. Fantasy football is unjust. But, if you have your team still alive, if you did enough to get this far, then trust in yourself. See what the fantasy football gods have in store for you. We know it will always be a surprise, and it will be a delight or perhaps a heartbreak, but it'll always keep us captivated.
It'll always keep us going, Bloom, right?
Yeah.
It's the fuel
the unknown.
For our souls. Yes, that's right. actually in my handy dandy notebook, Sigmund, which is very famous notebook. What did I write the other day? Or I might have texted it to myself, because as a writer, like as I told you off air, I was studying Kirisuke Gomen.
Yeah.
But I also wrote Soul Fuel Station. Because I was thinking of, like, if life is a highway, like where's your fuel station for your soul, baby? It's right here on the show. It's the people, right? It's our people. It's hanging out. It's just talking to each other. It's our friendship. It's our brotherhood. It's fantasy football. It's football. It's humanity, Bloom.
Yeah, it's being part of each other's lives in a positive way, and I appreciate the opportunity that y'all give us to do that. And we'll see what transgresses. We'll be back tomorrow with the Waiver Wire show. We'll be with you all week. We'll right up until the end as we get down to the nitty gritty.
That's right. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey, saying thank you all very much. We certainly appreciate you. We are the Audible, 19 years and rolling. He's Sig. I'm Cease. Stay tuned and stay frosty.